Yes, here we go. It is the Monday Club. It is interesting Monday. I think it's going to be a wee bit lively in the chat, Jonathan. What do you make of the weekend? We're going to discuss all that. We're going to discuss fans booing and when is it okay? Do you know what I mean? Because yeah, clearly sometimes people don't like that. But I think that's more than just 90 minutes that lead to booze. I think there's many questions now being asked of a board that have 2 days left of a window. What are they going to do? What rabbit are they going to pull out the hat? What are they going to do to surprise us? What plans are they going to be able to prove to us that they had in mind the whole time by signing players on either the 30th or the 31st? All attention is now pointing towards this mob. The penny is beginning to drop amongst even the biggest doubting fans. I know it by Twitter. That's what I always go by. Usually when I slag the board, Jonathan, I just get piles on about like having blonde hair and looking like, I don't know, various names. I think I got 20 new followers yesterday, which is a record for me. Like, and I think that tells me everything I need to know that whilst it's not a great discussion point, having to constantly focus things on the board and why we are where we are and how inept they've been in evolving as football's evolved, and they've kind of just watched idly by and pointing out things like Fergus McCann still made all his money back and profit, and yet was signing players for the same fees as Celtic are now. The fact we're still buying players for less than we were in some cases, and even the 90s. Once you start highlighting these factors on the back of what's been a very, very up and down season. In fact, I want more downs than ups this season, let's be honest. I think once you get all of it out there, I think people are beginning to realise that something is seriously wrong here. This is not a football club that's acting even remotely the size of what Celtic is. This is a football club that is largely trying to dumb down the expectation of fans. This is a football club. It suits very much if we're never quite striving for the next level. It suits them that it's been in the wilderness in terms of European football for now on 20 years without a knockout win. And yeah, there's a lot of fans maybe waking up to it, and there's other ones that might have been calling it out but get absolutely no fucking pleasure in doing so. Let that be the crucial point here. Anyone that says to you things like, it's almost like you want it to be like this, I mean, that's just crazy talk. Utter baffling to me. Not how it is whatsoever. We're just watching a club that is, to me, asleep at the wheel in the boardroom and a team in the park that will put you to sleep if you're watching. We'll do all that good stuff very quickly. There's 82 watching live. Thank you very much to everyone who's joining this Monday. Give us a wee like, give us a share, and as I was saying earlier, you can slag our hair if you want. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, like so many have, it's $1.99 a month. That's it. It's content. The content is free. It just helps support the channel because we do all this in our spare time on top of full-time jobs. But it's all good either way. Jonathan, usually you get the opening gambit. I've went on a fair bit tonight. I'm not sure how humorous yours will be tonight. Or are you going to take a darker tone, mate? Take it away.
Well, Russell, if you look back last week, we watched the end of the TV show The Traitors, and at the moment, the questions going around Celtic Park is just who at the football club remain faithful to the fans' visions. Celtic this season look like they have decided to play a game of bluff, or indeed double bluff. But are they going to make a power play to alleviate fan concerns? As at the moment, there are answers being demanded by the supporters as more dissenting voices begin to turn their attention towards Brendan Rodgers, who may have also turned his back on the fans at the weekend. The next few days may just determine how fast a banishment from Celtic Park will take place.
Good, Jonathan, bringing the traitors into it. I watched that last year as well. Loved it. So I'm watching this and it feels like everyone's jumped on the bandwagon a bit. I might enter it next year. I'd be good on that.
I think you would be good on that.
Yeah, so do I. So do I.
Brendan might be on it next year. Might have a job.
He better not be on it if I'm on it. He'd win by a country mile. Let's talk about the manager. For me, there's been a big turn in my attitude towards the manager after the weekend. And you know I don't say it lightly because I have banged the Brendan drum. I hope that doesn't sound wrong. But I've certainly been on Team Brendan's side, shall we say, and always championed his reappointment as manager. I've had enough from the weekend there. And the football is actually a big part of it, I suppose. I had a great chat with Phil on Saturday night, and you know what it's like. I was just like, "How was it at the game?" And he was like, "I was like, you know, you must be. Are you looking forward? I'm not looking forward to watching Celtic on the telly." And I was like, and that is honestly, in my opinion, quite damning because it's hardly ever get effort. I mean, but now when I look at this season, I always remember I go back to, I think it was September, and we lost or we drew. I think we drew. And I said to Terry on the PMP that I just stayed on the couch because I knew we weren't going to score. Normally it gets that wee bit intense and you're like kind of, you're that far away from the telly, do you know what I mean? You're sort of head around every ball and all that stuff. And I just stayed sitting on the couch, kind of just sort of, I didn't have any faith that we will. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And I've tried to put as much positive spin on it as I possibly can. But on Saturday there, we were fed up draw shit again. We got a win, fair enough. It's not a sign of champions though. Like, you know, sometimes when it's like, you know, you grind them out. It wasn't a grind, it was a grind for the fans to watch that crap. And I felt their attitude was polar opposite to what it was against Bucky Thistle. I know Bucky Thistle is shite opposition. But if your attitude's going to be wrong, it'd been easier to be wrong in that game. So you'd think. Yeah. But it seemed a completely different mindset for the team. It comes back to the manager's responsibility as well, you know. And then, sorry, excuse me, I've not put my phone on silent. That's the bunked up warlord to fuck's sake, man. Does he not know we're live? But the other thing, and the one that really got my sort of piqued my attention and maybe made me look more forensically as to how the season's been so far, whether I've really enjoyed it. I really think Brendan's done a good job so far. And he's the idiot in this. Because see when he turns on the fans booing and it makes it, he dilutes what they're booing about. He makes out in that comment, all his clever with his words. I know exactly what he was saying. When he turns round and he decides to go, well, if it's not, you know, they've booed since it came back, as if it's just booing for the sake of booing. That's the first example and about himself. No, let's have it right. 2 months ago, if that, you were metaphorically booing the board yourself, pal, right? Because you got 2 defeats in the spin. And suddenly recruitment was the talking word. And you were reminding us or letting us know for the first time, you actually told the board in the summer you wanted 4 players of quality, i.e. the 9 we brought in. You weren't a fan of. That's a bit of a change in tone. But I took it as finally he's finding his bollocks. Still giving him the benefit of the doubt. But when he turns round after that and says, if it's not me, it's the board, he's making out Celtic fans have scattergun approaches to this. I'm not having that, Jonathan. He deflected onto the board himself, 6-7 weeks ago after 2 defeats in a row. Now comes out and is almost making the fans look like they're the dafties and they just boo anything for the sake of it, and they'd be booing anyway. That's the impression I got. I'm sure you've heard the interview. Yeah, and what it does to me is really piss me off when I hear that, because I'm like, no, there's no consistency now in what you're saying. To me, it's complete deflection, everything from you. And it doesn't matter if the board get flung under the bus, the fans get flung under the bus, as long as it's not Brendan with the Bhoycie Bus is flinging them under the bus the night.
Yeah, I did think that, he should have been more careful with his words. It wasn't the most clever thing for him to really be coming out with, I don't think, post-match. I think that's something that if he's going to have those frustrations that he feels he's getting a hard time unfairly with the supporters, and that's something that could be said in private, but you certainly can't be going out in front of the cameras and pretty much challenging the fans based on what we've seen so far this season. And certainly elements of that booing undoubtedly will be to do with the lack of recruitment in this window and the poor summer window as well, which, Brendan has been in agreement with them on in the past too. So I think there is absolutely no way about it. He can't possibly get away with really turning around to me and saying that, it's just dismiss it because the fans are wanting to have a pop at every turn. Yes, there will be an element that I've never been happy he's been back, and those numbers will have been growing as performances have gotten worse in spells throughout this season. But there is also so many other factors at play. Our performance levels, let's be frank, haven't been good enough in a lot of games this season. The weekend was just another example of that, unfortunately. If we could pencil it down and say that was a one-off, then you could maybe understand Brendan's frustrations a bit more with the fans if that was the first time we'd really put in a poorer performance and scrambled a bit of a win at home to Ross County. But this has been happening probably more often than not, I would suggest, over the course of this season so far. And I think there is now serious question marks there as to whether Brendan's position is going to be tenable longer term, because I got from that impression from those comments as well, Russell, I don't expect there to be much more movement in the transfer window. Maybe one, possibly. If you're lucky, you may get Van Hooijdonk. Seems to be the only one that's doing any sort of rumours whatsoever. And I don't know if that's now Brendan deciding to take his frustrations out on another poor window on the wrong place, because he knows the board aren't going to back him again in this window. I don't know if this is the beginning of him already working his ticket and thinking perhaps he might just walk at the end of the season, or he may well be forced out, depending on how the league goes, first and foremost. But there does seem to be something that's just not quite right with what's coming out there for me. And I think that was I think it was frustration on Brendan's part, but he's taken it out completely the wrong way. And it could very well come back to bite him in the coming weeks, because he's going to have to work now with what he has, probably in terms of players. As I say, he might get one more, but he's pretty much going to have to win this league title with the players that are already at his disposal. And a lot of those players, him and indeed Callum McGregor, were both saying needed improved upon, just back in November there. So there is a lot of question marks that need to be answered. And, this isn't all on Brendan, but there's definitely a lot more focus, I felt, moving on to him after another poor performance. And then those post-match comments is just further antagonising fans that may well have been on his side. And it's creating a lot more of a polarising effect, I think, around Celtic Park. And what we're actually doing now is we're actually turning home games into a more trickier place to play, I think, a lot of the time than the away ones are. Because if Celtic Park gets poisonous, which it's on the brink of doing, I think, at times, then that does, come back and influence performances on the pitch. If, players aren't performing very well, then that can sometimes have that knock-on effect. So there's a lot to sort out here. But for me, Russell, I think the big thing to take away from that is you're not going to see anybody else in the window, I don't think, apart from maybe one. And I think that's Brendan Rodgers taking out his frustration at the wrong place.
Why, though? Why would he aim it at the fans that way? That was a big, big move to make, because I think if you have any smarts about you whatsoever, you already have read the room that the fans, certainly a percentage, no one louder than me, don't trust the board as it is. If you go with that narrative, if the board have done you a bad turn this window, which it seems apparent, everyone's going to be on side with that. They're all going to believe you straight away. So get some, if you're going to be aiming fire anywhere, it'd be at them. Alex comes in with a brilliant point, and Alex in the comments always brilliant. Never spoke to Alex in my life, but whenever you read the comments, they're always like, they're good. And it's, I want him gone now. Backed him up until that interview. Exactly how I felt. The fans stick up for him to get backed by the board. Exactly. Like, he's forgotten that, I think. Completely forgotten that, and showed his true colours, that really he'll do anything to protect himself. And that frustrates me, that I thought the interview was a disgrace. I think he has to take responsibility for that performance. It was utter abysmal. Now let's get to the window. And we're trying to cover a lot of bases here. Still doom and gloom. Celtic are still top of the league. But undeniably there's a unity. Sometimes I think we rewrite or we reflect on seasons gone by and you go, well, they were just putting that on. They were nowhere near as good as they thought, and we coasted off. But there's a unity under Clement, massively thanked, I suppose, by Mickey Beale being such a clown that they've enjoyed. I think they've enjoyed the fact they've had someone with half a brain cell in charge again. So it's not been that difficult for Clement to sort of unite their ranks. Brendan's not been able to do it for day one with us. Whether I wanted him to, I was pushing for the fans to try and get behind them. The board didn't get behind him though either. The Holy Trinity he spoke about in his first. Do you remember the Invincible season? He spoke about a Holy Trinity, but the Holy Trinity's all been pulling in different directions. End of story. The fans have been split on whether they wanted Brendan back or not. I think the board was split on whether they wanted Brendan back or not. I think Brendan's had moments where it looks like he's having digs at the board. Now it looks like to me, well, in fact, it doesn't look like to me. He was having a dig at the fans at the weekend. Unacceptable move. All of that just does not work. But the board's place in this is incredible. And if they think I'll be naive enough, or anyone else, they can only speak for themselves. You think I'm going to be daft enough for them to try and play the card that, if he were to leave, or I go, well, that's why we didn't back him, We knew he would have resigned on the exit door and his record isn't that good. Now we've got a manager we really believe in. No, if they've got a manager they really believe in, that's because they think they'll say yes even more than Neil Lennon would to them. Do you know what I mean? When he came back second spell, that's what they're after. They're after a yes man. But what they're doing right now is utterly shocking. We are watching right now a league title race formed with a club whose own manager says, we don't really have much money. We're financially not in a great position. He says that, and 3 days later signs a £4.5 million player. Our board have managed somehow to get our own fans into a position where we would question £4.5 million on players. We're the ones who argue with each other. Can't he do that now, though? It'd be too difficult. It's an incredible situation. I've never seen anything like a Rangers manager coming out effectively saying we're pretty skint, then signing a player at £4.5 million right after it. We very rarely sign players for £4.5 million. I don't think we spent that on a player. And even the summer window with the 70 million cash reserves, there's 60 million at stake to get in the Champions League this year. We are asleep behind the wheel in that boardroom. It is embarrassing.
Yeah, there's definitely ridiculous decisions making getting done by both recruitment and board level. 100%. There's no two ways about it. There's been players that have been identified need upgraded or strengthening in certain positions, and it's been obvious since the summer what some of those positions have been. I think we were all expecting this window to bring about a left back and a striker, and in true Celtic fashion under Brendan Rodgers, they go and buy another winger. Which is just is quite incredible how that even ends up happening when that was one of the prime reasons he ended up leaving the first time around. But you're looking at it, you're thinking 4 or 5 million could get you, somebody that can do your job 100%. And there's definitely options that are within that bracket that the Celtic board could have went out and got. You might not get the most glamorous names at those sort of prices, but if you're wanting players at this moment in time to make sure that the league is won, there is absolutely no question about it. Celtic have the means to go out and find these players. Some of them are actually sitting on their doorstep potentially in Scotland. You look at the likes, and I'm not saying these are brilliant signings by any stretch of the imagination, but Shankland and Miovski are both in Scotland at the moment, and they would certainly help with the striker issue if it doesn't end up being Van Hooijdonk in the next couple of days. And the left-back situation is even more bizarre because that's one that we all know Alexander Barnaby is not up to standard. He's nowhere near good enough. We've ended up, as you would expect, with an injury to Greg Taylor, just to sum it all up, and just now, who isn't brilliant at the best of times, but he's certainly a damn sight better than Barnaby. And now you're actually scrambling about, looking at it and thinking, what on earth's going on at a left-back? But there doesn't even seem to be any movement whatsoever there in that position either by the board, and that's again complete negligence to not have identified somebody for that position and got somebody in. More importantly, we're now moving in to the last couple of days of this window, and as I said earlier, I don't think there's going to be anyone. I think possibly Van Hooijdonk, they might go over the line. That is going to be a lot about merchandise though as well. There's going to be a lot of positives from a boardroom level rather than necessarily just on the pitch level There's a lot of boxes that get ticked if you get in a player like Van Hooydonk for his name value.
He's not scored a goal this season. He's
Well, that's
he'll
what I
be
mean.
the first goalless striker we've ever signed that we're doing it on the basis they'll sell shirts. It's incredible. It is incredible what I'm watching. I mean, I keep talking about Twitter. I'm not great with social media, right? So Twitter's as far as I go, right? Is it in terms of, like, there's Facebook as well. I've got Facebook, but Twitter's kind of like my place where I air my Celtic views, if you like. And I honestly, some of the stuff, I think, as I say, I think there's a lot of people now beginning to turn their heads and go, right, okay, this maybe isn't right. And then there's still some now that will literally just stare you down and go, we can't do this. We can't. We just can't afford that. Well, when can we? When can we afford to pay our highest earners more than we paid our highest earners 23 years ago? There's no other club that has been in the Champions League as many times as Celtic that is record earner or highest earner right now is the same as it was 23 years ago. Don't tell me bullshit. Do you know what I mean? It's just not the case. But the fact they've managed to get so many, and I think because it's been so long they've been there, this is one of the real downsides to having the same board, the same directors for such a long period of time, because it's then a generational thing. And once generations think this is just the norm, they are completely conditioned to think we can't do things. It's not we can't, it's a fact we won't. I've always said this. I said this about 18 months ago. I'm not trying to be a smart ass, but I didn't want to know. A lot of people didn't want to know at the time. Most people who watched the bus were happy to have these debates, these conversations. Didn't have to agree with me necessarily, but were open to the debate. Places like Twitter and stuff, it was absolutely like, if you ain't on board with everything Celtic right now, because Andrew's here, you're a fanny, basically. But there's loads more going on at Celtic than just the manager and the team. I was consistent that I didn't trust the board that were there. Stand by it. People are now picking up the ball again after having had a 2-year absence, purely because there was a love-in with Ange. But they took their eyes off the board, and the board didn't back down. They doubled down. 2-for-1 Lawwells. Buy one, get one free in the Desmonds. Musical chairs with the rest. Should be ashamed if you've decided just to take your eye off that because of a few domestic trophies again, whilst Europe was as inept as ever during that time. It's pathetic. So, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's quite clearly more should be getting done and being asked questions of the board. That certainly the scrutiny is definitely back on them, and it's back on them very sharply at the moment. And I do wonder if we are heading towards them looking at Brendan Rodgers as being their sacrificial lamb in that sense, and possibly then trying to play that off as if Brendan's came in and he's just trying to unsettle things by trying to bring in players who shouldn't be behind the scenes and not necessarily saying anything in public. And if he ends up walking, then they can try and justify it by saying, well, we had a feeling he might end up doing that because he's got previous for doing that as well. It all just seems off with the board. There's certainly an element of them that didn't want Brendan back in to begin with, and I think that has been readily apparent that these ones that didn't want Brendan back in to begin with are unfortunately the ones that seem to be the ones that make the decisions on who enters the building, because there's just been nothing in either of these two transfer windows since Brendan Rodgers has came in that suggests to me why he's even came back whatsoever. If he's trying to build Celtic, and obviously for everyone, in the summer you were looking at it and expecting Celtic to be making inroads in Europe. That was the whole game plan of bringing Brendan in. That was the obvious reason why Brendan had came back in the summer. Whereas now it's looking like he's actually just having to do damage limitation to try and protect his reputation, from the first spell around, because domestically he couldn't do anything more than he'd done the first time. Domestically now it's not going as good as it was the first time around. He was never going to be able to do anything better than what Ange Postecoglou done in terms of silverware last season. So the only way really was down, or to manage to do the same as what Ange Postecoglou had done in that sense. But you were expecting the board to then give him something to try and inspire fans, inspire the manager, inspire the players on to go and make a real fist of things on the European stage, which we haven't seen in so long. And they've totally missed the opportunity there with that. And it's quite clear looking back now that I don't think that was an opportunity they ever really wanted to seize with both hands. This sounds to me like it was Dermot Desmond has had his say and bringing Brendan back in. And then once that has happened, he's let the board dictate what's happened in terms of transfers. And it's quite clear that nothing that is happening in terms of recruitment is really getting involved with the manager's office whatsoever. And then in this window, it doesn't seem like we're even bothering or asked to even try with recruitment, even though we are crying out for better quality players in so many positions. We now have, so many players there that aren't good enough, that are getting, fairly regular opportunities in the first team, and that we know, from years ago that they weren't good enough, and they're still there. They're still picking up wages, and we just don't seem to want to accept that Celtic need to be better than this. And, make no mistake about it, Russell, they're in a real title race this year. Now, they've squandered the lead they had, and now you're looking at a Rangers team who, granted, maybe aren't brilliant by any stretch of the imagination, but they just have to be better than the rest of the league, which they are consistently proving since Clemence came in, that they're not dropping much points to the rest of the league. They're not giving away the silly points Beale was last season. And for Celtic, if we want to call the board a reactionary board, they're not even reacting to this at the moment. That's the most laughable part about this. Usually, the Celtic board do react when they feel a bit of pressure coming from our rivals. But the pressure's there, and they're still not reacting. And I think, in some ways, this goes back to the fact that Brendan Rodgers has managed to beat them twice in the league this season. They're almost playing a gamble here that Brendan Rodgers will be able to get them over the line in these next two derby matches, because I think they're probably going to decide the title as things stand. I don't see many points getting dropped by either club in the other games. So I think the derbies are now going to be absolutely critical. I don't know, Russell, do you think the board have then turned around and thought, we've won the last two of these, Brendan Rodgers' record in these derbies is extremely strong, he'll make sure we get over the line, and they're just gambling from an area of almost complacency there?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think what they're also doing that's very clever is basically going, well, that's what he gets the big bucks for. He's on the 60 grand a week, apparently. He's on the 60 grand a week. How brilliant to prove that big wages don't work at Celtic. Then not back him, not support him, and it'll go fucking Pete Tong. Trust me, the 2 seasons in a row that we got the automated, or automatic, if you like, access to the groups in the Champions League, that was a headache for the Celtic board. And again, this has been signposted on this channel for 18 months minimum. Folk have to get real and start opening their eyes and stop being, stop fucking not looking at the board just because of what's happening in the park. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes on those bastards. Enjoy the football for a winning team. Keep your eyes on what's going on, though. And here's the best example. I mean, Celtic, the narrative would be, and they would love it to get leaked, and I'm sure they had various managers, coaches, ex-players, maybe the odd interview with Peter Lawler that would allude to it. And that would be, we wouldn't speculate overly in the window because obviously had the tricky playoff route to qualify for the Champions League. It wasn't guaranteed money, so they didn't want to take that risk. So they would budget for a Europa League campaign. That was apparently the strategy. We get 2 years automatic Champions League football in a row. Now, the first one, they might be lower treading water a bit, even though it's Beale shit, I don't fall for that shite. But the second one, this is sustained regular money here. This is sustained, and by this point, we did a 2 million net spending, what was described as Ange spending fortunes in his first window. The next one, we brought in Matt O'Reilly for 1.5 million, Hatate about the same, Ideguchi, utter pish, but I don't know, 500,000. And if you remember, Daizen Maeda on loan with an obligation to buy for 1.7 million. They couldn't even shell it at 1.7 then. It's incredible. That was a cheap window to I don't think anyone left of note that brought us in revenues. Then after that, it was profit again the next two under Ange that we made in terms of net spend in the transfer window alone, let alone the revenue for the Champions League group stage. Where was the gamble when it was automatic? Didn't want to do it. They felt uncomfortable with that, in my opinion, and have not known what to do. But do you know what the defenders of them now still do? And there's still many. And we need to break these bastards down as well, because you have to get on board with wanting that board gone. You have to get realistic. There's no evolution here. There's no optimism. There's no ambition. There's no foresight of a better Celtic. It's all going to keep you here. It's Groundhog Day year on year. There's never going to be moments in the sun. There's never going to be another Seville. There's never going to be moments like seeing players you can't believe have just joined Celtic again. And people are, that's impossible. Shut up. There's still romance in football where you should have moments. You should have moments where you go, I can't believe we've just done that. Even if it's a 6-month loan like a Craig Bellamy back in the day, we're so far away from even wanting to do things like that, let alone trying to. They don't want to do things like that. But when it comes to this summer, if they don't win that league, the worst thing that could happen to them is still to come. Because whilst we bitch and moan and constantly point the finger and use a basket case as a benchmark, that's not what I want to do about Rangers. But what I do know is they'll invest as much as they possibly can in what all football club boards are meant to do. And that is the product in the park. The football club board is there to support and ensure the best possible product on the park. They don't do that. They support the best possible profit on their balance sheet.
Yeah, they do. It's always been that way, and it's one of those ones that when you have people in positions like this for this many years, it's change, and change is quite difficult for anyone once they've been kind of stuck in their ways for so long. And this Celtic board has been in situ now for 2 decades over that. Some of them have been there for, and I don't think they want to embrace the change. They look at it and think there's a decent chance there they can make healthy money out of Celtic, and they're not overly bothered about what happens in terms of the success on the park. As long as we're winning the title more often than not, shall we say, that'll be enough to keep them happy. And we've had a lot of domestic success over the past 10 years or so that'll keep them happy. But in terms of actually showing real ambition, you're going back so long now since Celtic actually really went for the throat. And you're looking at it, and the money's there. Everyone can see it now. It's staring you in the face anytime you look at the accounts when they come out each year. There's nowhere to hide it or dress it up. It's just a question of whether or not there is actually ever going to be a spend there, whether or not that's going to have to happen one day when the board completely changes hands. But who knows when that will be? That could be a long way off now that we're seeing fathers giving jobs to sons in the boardrooms. You're almost going back to the Kellys days of old in the 90s, is what that could end up becoming like, where it becomes a job for the boys and not a job for the best suited for the role. And you just got to look at it and think Celtic have now put themselves in a position where they've won the league the last 2 years, won a treble last season, and now they're in a position where they're struggling domestically. Well, knocked out the League Cup at the first attempt. Haven't put in strong performances over the course of the season often enough thus far. Have dropped a lot more points than they have in recent years to other teams in the league, because the reason this gap is so close is actually because of Celtic's inability to beat the rest rather than actually beating their nearest rivals. Let's not forget as to why we're in this position domestically. Yet we find ourselves in this position purely because of recruitment strategy, board not willing to take chances. Because if this board was ambitious, staying ahead of Rangers would be easy. It would be easy. It wouldn't even be close. If Celtic actually had the ambition at boardroom level, Celtic would be trying to make inroads into Europe. The league would end up becoming like how it is, in Germany, where Bayern Munich pretty much win it every year without fail. Maybe one of the other German clubs win it now and then. But generally speaking, with Celtic in Scotland, that's what we should be looking to achieve, and we should be able to achieve with the amount of money we've got in the bank. But the board, for some reason or another, do not want to invest on the product on the park as often as they should.
What do they want to do with the money?
Bank it. They want to bank it.
What is the point?
Well, they're just thinking of their bonuses, I think, at the end of the day. I think that's what they're most interested in, is making sure there's enough cash there going out to the shareholders, making sure they get their bonuses, making sure that they can get a nice pay rise at the end of the year, give themselves a wee pat on the back if Celtic win the league.
Who can ask them
like
these
that.
questions?
Well, there's lots of people that can. There's lots of different stakeholders that are there. You've got the AGM opportunities for the shareholders to put questions towards them. You've got Brendan
Are they
Rodgers.
cherry-picked questions?
Well, that is the concern. You could have that on the floor that, they already know what questions are coming. That wouldn't surprise me at all in situations like that. But you do also have a manager there who was renowned for making those types of questioning the first time around, and that's where the friction all came around from. You're not really hearing anything about that this time, Russell. You're not hearing anything about Brendan Rodgers trying to upset the apple cart behind the scenes and trying to really push for his players. He seems to quite happy playing players that he had the first time around, this time again, rather than actually asking serious questions of this board as to why he's been made to look like a fool, because that's what they're actually doing. They're making him look really foolish at the moment. And I get he's contributed to that, but he is looking very silly as well because of the comments he's coming out with. And then the board not backing him up is then forcing him to have to change his narrative completely, or he feels he's been forced to have to change his narrative completely. And that is a bad look for the manager. And this is a manager who has a very good reputation in football. And he risks really going up in smoke a little bit if Celtic were to lose the league title to Rangers. That's going to be a big black mark on his CV that he doesn't want and can't really afford to take if he's got aspirations of going anywhere else, again in the Premiership or anything like that, with Brendan Rodgers too. So, Rodgers and the fans should really be trying to push it. And I think the fans are, again, beginning to push those questions out. But the problem is, you've now got 2 days left of January. It's going to be too little too late. The board are going to get through this window, I suspect, with very little more spend, maybe a loan. They might get Van Hooijdonk, as I've said earlier. But outside of that, they're going to get away with it scot-free for yet another window, and then again they're
not getting away with it though. In my opinion, you get away with it if you then get your results banked. This is what fucks me off the most. We were going into the Champions League, a far more difficult competition than the SPFL, and we didn't treat that tournament with any respect at all. That's my opinion. There was literally no respect shown at the Champions League the last 2 summer windows. Comes to January, and I don't even think we're treating the SPFL title with enough respect. It's all happening in front of your eyes. There is an environment right now that is toxic, and we've discussed the reasons why. But the board have to make ice-cool decisions. They do not make decisions. I think they did it with Lenny, as much as I always try and defend Neil Lennon as much as I possibly can for what he does, overall at Celtic. That lockdown season, it was like, come on. And I genuinely think they held on to him longer because they didn't want to be seen doing what fans tell them. Because they think it sets a precedent, but I find that no way to run a business. All business decisions are business and business only, not emotional ones, not narrative-based ones. And to be honest, childish ones, if I'm completely honest. So I was like, nah, not doing what you tell us. I think there is a bit of that, I'll be honest. I think they know a lot of the time. Idiots like even me are right quite often when it comes to stuff like this. I can see through these bastards, and they don't want that to come back out into the limelight and go, oh, because if you folk aired some fears or aired some grievances, etc., we don't want to follow that narrative. We'll do it our way. The January window, this January, was literally teed up by the manager. He told us, I spoke to him in the summer, and obviously we get to January, there's 4 players of quality I want. He decided, he decided, they decided not to support that. They've went down that path. See, if we bring 2 players, I think we'll bring in 2 on loan. I predicted that about 2 weeks ago. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a high horse tonight. That is all honest truth. I said to you 2 weeks ago when we'll get in the Nicholas Kuhn, and it'll be 2 more loan players. I predict a left back and a striker. I think that'll still happen. The worst bit though is I think the left back might actually now just be because Greg Taylor's got injured for a couple of weeks. I genuinely think that might actually mean that we do get one on loan, and I think we'll get a striker on loan. But that's nowhere near justifying everything that the fan base buy into when it comes to Celtic. And always go back to this summer. We're all in is the slogan. If you don't realise you're being trolled and having the piss taken out of you yet, I can't help you. If you think we can't do better than what we are already, and we can't be more ambitious, and we can't spend more, I can't help you. You'll get there though, and you'll realise that Celtic's far bigger. The only way to prove it would be different leadership. But right now, the conditioning they've done has been absolutely world class, Jonathan. And I think too many generations have never seen what Celtic can become. I appreciate football's changed, but we're not even having a go.
No, we're not. We've kind of got to the point now where they've got to a place where you've not won a European tie since after Christmas. Since 2004, I think it is. So what's that now? 20 years. You're talking 2 decades. You are talking there a generation of Celtic supporters have grown up and never seen Celtic win a European tie after Christmas. They probably don't think it's possible. A lot of them now, based on how we have acted as a club over the past 2 decades. And there's just been countless examples of windows like this when we're watching play out just now over those years as well. This isn't the first time we've went through this, far from it. It happens on a pretty regular basis. In fact, it's why we always end up so surprised when the window goes well. You know that one with Ange Postecoglou in his first season in January that everyone raves about. We were all pleasantly surprised to see a club actually taking the ascendancy, getting on the front foot and getting their business done. We felt that was the club perhaps beginning to turn a corner there, and then nothing going forward. And I'm not saying we necessarily need to be spending tens of millions of pounds, but at least when you know you've got players that you've identified need improvements or you need to strengthen your squad, go out on the ascendancy, get the players in early in the window. Don't mess around. You've had months to prepare. Brendan Rodgers has told them, allegedly, since the summer.
Timelined, mate. It's timelined. This is the thing. The comments Rodgers made is to the public about his sort of a take on where the squad was at was 4 quality players in the summer. He fucking is then he's done it after defeats, which has pissed me off now after how he acted at the weekend. And he can forget getting my back now between now and then either, unless he really does start getting a more consistent line of direction in his comments, because as far as I'm concerned, the path he's on is absolute self-preservation. I can't fuck people like that. Don't come back to do the same thing again. And, and when it comes to the fans who have invested way more, and seen the last 23 years, well, Celtic still pay their best players the same as what they were 23 years ago. The fans have paid more and more. The fan strips have went up. The season tickets have went up. The pies have went up. The chips have went up. Everything else goes up. But what Celtic's willing to pay a player individually? We'll just sign Hunters for 10 grand a week and hope we can sell them for 20 million. Fuck off. Like any football club in the Champions League right now that has appeared in the Champions League as many seasons as Celtic in the last 20 years that is still paying this, not even like less than a lot of the fees, right? Less than a lot of the fees they were 20, 30 years ago. And the same top earners are not the same top earners, the same top earning wage is what it was 23 years ago. Honestly, like, see if folk can't get their head around how this is silly. It's so annoying.
It's one of those ones where, the fans have invested so much of their money into the club and they continue to pay more and more year on year, and they're watching the quality of the product not getting the same levels of investment financially as they are putting in to the club. You can't really spell it out any more clearly than that. The Celtic board know exactly what they're doing. They are pulling at the heartstrings of the supporters who are not going to give up on things like their season tickets. They know they can get away with these price hikes because the love of the club is too much for any of these fans that go every week to turn back and turn down. And they totally take advantage of that situation without investing it on the park to actually try and be the best club that Celtic can be. I just don't really understand why that's really happening. And this is why this whole season, I think, is boiling into so much frustration, is because when you go and bring in somebody like a Brendan Rodgers in the summer, the expectation levels go up because they get the first part right in terms of bringing in a manager that is respected. He is known as a world-class manager. Whether Celtic fans necessarily all wanted him back or not, there's no disputing the guy has a lot of pedigree in the game, and you're expecting that then to be matched with the player recruitment, and then that never happened. It was like Dermot Desmond, as I say, came in, done that bit of business, and then took a back seat. And I think he also has to take a share of the blame for this as well, because he should be on the outside looking at this, Russell, and being like, well, this is clearly something's not right behind the scenes here. You know, a blind man can see something isn't right behind the scenes at Celtic just now. And it's all going to end up coming out one way or another. And, you know, if results do take a dip again, we've seen a glimpse of what Brendan was like at the weekend there, where he's, you know, trying to protect himself. Absolutely. He will turn on anyone, and he will unleash, I think, at some point at the board again as well. I think he's not done it there because they've won, but that's
I won't believe in this time, though.
Yeah,
I won't believe in this time. You do your silly 2 windows of kissing those bastards' arse, having absolutely made a fool of yourself after 2 desperate performances and 2 desperate defeats, then backtrack on it in the next window, kiss their arse again. Nah, see you later, mate. Doesn't work for me. I don't like people like that. Does not work for me. And I don't get work for a lot of people either. Anyway, it is enough of my ranting. I am pissed off tonight. I can't deny it. And I really do hope people can see that this isn't a position I wanted to find myself in. This isn't trying to be over the top about it all. I was very, very much Team Brendan up until this weekend. It has changed. Soupy the Doug, thank God, finally, someone sensible. Bhoycie, think if you could get onto the board, we would win the Champions League next season. Brilliant, eh? That's exactly. That's
what about the Champions League.
That's what you take away. See if that's the takeaway for the 45 minutes. Hoopy the Dog, well played, mate. Well played.
Forget about the Champions League, Russell. You've got bigger things to worry about. You've got sudden death to think about. You just think about one wee tournament at a time.
Aye. Yeah, all right, mate. All right. I know.
It's just on the night.
Frustration, mate. Though, like there's 2 sides to it, because there's one of the big sides for me is convincing so many fans of this for so long, and then almost feeling like there's no vindication in what I'm saying. There's no relief. I'm more pissed off tonight than I was 18 months ago trying to flag these things, Phil. And when we spoke on the phone on Saturday, you'd even said to me, you were like, boys, you were fucking calling out the board fucking Angie's second window. He was like, he goes, folk didn't want to know then.
That's right.
And that doesn't mean that being right matters more. It doesn't. I actually hate it, because it takes this long, the toxicity grows. And as I say, during that time when people didn't keep their eyes on the board, they strengthened their position like you would not believe. You listen to that Desmond's laddie at the last AGM, we'll never sell. He's telling you they're not going anywhere. They will never sell, ever. So that's what you're now stuck with. It's if you're willing to now. People have to wake up. But I better get the quiz head on. Jonathan's going to win the night.
Oh, well, don't know. All that fire in the belly there, Russell, might get you through here, mate. Inspire you.
Close my comments anyway. That was the last one.
No worries at all. Yeah, we will get fired into it. Another game of sudden death. At the moment, the score is 11-6, 5 points in it. Russell, of course, you did win last week, so you will have the choice tonight of first or second. So I've just got the aesthetics all set up, and we shall get going.
I'll take my wee bonus fucking question. Bonus question.
We keep that tradition. I don't think I've ever taken the clue. I've never had the clue.
It's patronising, and I like it. It's the only cool thing I like to have a wee bonus question on my own podcast, taking the full piss out of me while still winning. I love stuff like that. I admire it, Jonathan. I deserve it.
I always kind of think with the bonus question, there's a good chance you'll get it wrong, and then I get the bonus question anyway. So I quite like I quite like it getting the chance of coming over to me.
Oh, fuck off with that. Fuck what?
All
I
about
hadn't even
strategy.
thought of that.
Yeah.
All about
But
strategy.
if Russell does it, if he's going second and he does it as the last one, then there's no chance of Jonathan getting a chance to answer it.
There is
'Cause
that.
I
he's-
can't keep up with all
there's
this.
that.
Yeah.
That is. Okay, so let's say scores 11-6. Russell,
Right,
you
let's
on the
do it.
point, and we know you're going to go second, so that's fair dues. So tonight's question is a Celtic rated question, and there is 15 answers in it, guys. 15, so not too bad at all. And tonight it's all about one man, a cult hero on sudden death. Because tonight's question is all about James Forrest. However, this is one of these ones that I think when you get the obvious answers, I think it's going to quickly turn into random shots in the dark. That's what I'll say. So,
His story, his fucking career.
so many believe that James Forrest's best football at Celtic was under Brendan Rodgers in the first era as manager. But fair assessment.
Yep.
He scored against 15 different teams during Brendan's first spell in charge. Can you name any of the teams he netted against while Brendan was the boss that time? So there's 15 of them.
So not just his first season, his first spell.
First
His
spell.
first spell, all
Rogers'
3
first
years,
spell,
or
yeah.
2.5,
Brendan's
yeah.
first spell, for clarity, went from the 20th of May 2016 to the 26th of February
Fuck.
2019.
Of course, he's got the dates there for us.
Of course he does.
I will kick it off because he got his first goal, I believe, against Rangers during Brendan's time, 5-0 win.
He did indeed, Jono.
He scored a lot of goals against them. St Johnstone.
Oh yes, he did indeed.
Yes.
Terrorised them.
I believe he scored in a cup final against Aberdeen, the League Cup final, I think.
Did. Yep. Aberdeen.
I'm already like... Oh. Hearts.
Yeah, he scored against Hearts, indeed. Yes.
Very good. I would go for the other side, Edinburgh. I think he will scored against Hibs.
Hibernian is an incorrect answer.
Yeah, it was under Lenny. It was under Lenny with outside of the boot. Top bins.
Jamesy.
It was
Jamesy.
Lenny's first game back, second game back, and it was in the Scottish Cup.
That's
That
correct.
was right. Mind it. Oh, scenes.
Yep.
Oh man, Jamesy's let me down this week.
Okay, well,
Aye,
Russell,
Roger's
advantage you, mate.
I will take my bonus question, Phil, and hammer down that advantage, please.
Oh, okay, right.
Oh, he's going down early.
Because if you don't get this, there's a good chance that it passes over to John.
I'm game.
Right, okay, we'll go for it. Okay, so the clue on one of the missing answers is a European club that we could not escape at this time.
Oh, Rosenborg.
Rosenborg is correct. Yes, he did.
Yes, yes.
Um,
He's shiny silicon.
Yeah, to be honest, I can't see me winning this one. I'm too far back.
still 2 shots each, guys.
Yeah, I can't even think of any other James Forrest goals.
He's in a wee huff. Look at him. You can see it in his wee
Mate.
face. See you later, mate. There you go. Shoot.
I'm going to say Motherwell. I played Motherwell quite a lot.
Motherwell's
with Brendan.
correct. Yep, Motherwell is a correct answer. Yes.
Damn, I was hoping he was going to get that wrong. I was trying to get a buy and he was going to get it wrong. Hamilton?
Hamilton Accies is a correct
I thought
answer.
that.
as well, yep.
Because they're in the Premier League, they're mental.
Yeah, so Jonathan, you have to get this to basically force Russell's hand here. So
Ooh, it's going to be tricky. I think there's going to be another ones. There's going to be more of the ones I think are in the top flight. I think we got a fair number of goals against them one season under Brendan. It's a bit more of a stab in the dark. We got 5 against them in one game. I'm going to say Partick Thistle.
Partick Thistle's correct. Yes, indeed. Scored a hat-trick against them.
Oh,
Okay.
you just literally stole my last answer, which I definitely never thought you'd get. Bastards. Okay. Kilmarnock.
to win the
Kilmarnock
point. Is
written
Kilmarnock
down.
the correct answer? It is a correct answer,
Yes!
yes. Kilmarnock is indeed correct, yes. But I did say, when you got the obvious ones out the way, it was going to turn into just random stab in the dark.
Go for the rest of them, mate. I want to hear them.
So the remaining ones, Alloa Athletic, a game where Craig Gordon came out and fly kicked a player. Do you remember that one? That was
Oh,
famous.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He scored that night. Astana in the Champions League qualifiers, he scored against them.
Yeah.
Ross County, Dundee,
Ross County Randon.
Brecon City in a Scottish Cup game, and another European qualifier, bit of an obscure one, Alishkert. There you go.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
just great. I
Oh.
think they can tell. Everyone knows what's happening. He's crumbling in front of you.
And that makes the score
Yeah,
Russell
yeah.
7, Jonathan 11. There
Oh,
we
look
go.
at the way Huffy's like he can barely even muster a word. He's in a huff.
I just let you have your moment to chat. You don't get them very often. I like to let you have the spotlight, Russell. You don't get
You're
many.
in a
wins.
huff, mate. You almost said after 300, I'm running out already. Like,
I was
three
running out. I
questions.
was running out.
But the gap
it
was
was very
too big.
well
Oh,
played.
Shut up, mate.
It was very well played, Russell. I'm just making it more interesting for the viewers. So
I like that attitude. mate.
it's running. It's running until May. Remember, we don't need it being over by February. What would we do at that time?
Oh, mate, listen, everyone's backing me to win this, mate. It's called momentum. You know it, pal. Everyone's loving it. Like, even Timmy Bings turned on you, mate. He was cheering you on before the quiz. Now he just went, we've had a Huff syndrome. That's how quick the fans can turn. Brendan, are you listening? Anyway, we'll leave it there. As always, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a wee bit of a annoyed show. Ended well because I beat Jonathan. That's always fun. But genuinely, please, if you haven't been already, those who've been regular viewers will have. Keep your eyes on the board. See you later. Cheers, Phil.